It's not the Cavernoma that presented itself so much. It's that the seizures presented themselves, or what I learned were seizures. It's very strange episodes that I was experiencing, and certainly the strange illness that I was having, or realized I was having. And then when my neurologist that I was finally sent to finally gave me an MRI scan after another series of tests that they give you to try to see if you're actually truly having seizures. I had a very careful neurologist, and finally at the end gave me an MRI and said, called me in the next day right after the MRI and said, we've identified the cause and you are having seizures. I'm sure you're having seizures now, and I've identified the cause. It's something called a Cavernoma, and explained to me what it was. That's when I knew I had a Cavernoma. And he said, gee, you seem very stoic. And David was with me, my husband David. And I thought, well, of all the things an MRI could have identified, this thing doesn't sound malignant. It doesn't sound degenerative. It sounds like, from what he's saying, it's not going to wreak any more havoc than these temporal lobe seizures, and that they control them with medication. And I was relieved that it was a Cavernoma and not a brain tumor or some degenerative neurological condition that was going to get worse and worse and worse. So at that point I thought, phew, okay, at least this is something that can be managed. And what I was more concerned about at that point was the epilepsy. So yeah, but I went home and I searched the internet for Cavernoma so I could learn a little bit more, because my neurologist then said, look, don't worry about the Cavernoma. We'll get on with your life and we'll manage the epilepsy.
But you had it removed from one of the...
Well, I did eventually, because not worrying about it so much, but I got quite ill from it. I had stopped working because I thought, at that point I thought I was exhausted with work, and people use the stress word, that I was stressed at work. I didn't want to use the stress word, but then I realized I didn't leave work with exhaustion. I left work with illness at that, because so I wasn't working at that point anymore. I'd left institutional life, but I thought, okay, I'll get my energy back. I'll recharge my batteries and recover from being so ill. But I wasn't going to worry so much about the Cavernoma. As I say, my concern was the epilepsy. But by that time, I had found you and the Cavernoma Alliance, and that's another story. But that was 2007. About 2010 or so, was it? The Cavernoma did wreak havoc because it bled, and that's when the Cavernoma did become my worry, because then the symptoms got worse. I had got more neurological symptoms from that, and that's when I really got ill with it. My life with the Cavernoma does divide into two, before and after it bled. So before it bled, I was adapting just to be a person that left institutional life, that was more tired, really. After the bleed, and then after the surgery, I'm still adjusting. I've only thought about it today after we had the talk, that I really have to think about it. It's still a long haul. I had to recover from a person who was totally focused on recovering from the anxiety and the physical trauma of brain surgery. So it wasn't just the Cavernoma, it was the brain surgery itself, because that was a big deal for me. And I think it was, the timing of when it happened in my life. And then I had to find things that gave me value and gave me interest. And one of those things, I have to say, Ian, was doing the work I was doing with Cavernoma Alliance, because one of the things was being supported by the Cavernoma Alliance and all the peer support we give each other, but also helping support Cavernoma Alliance by participating in the activities. But also, I started getting my identity back, being a researcher. Having left academia as a researcher and a writer, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, gradually, for you and on your invitation, I could become a researcher again, a researcher for Cavernoma Alliance, by writing information, by researching and writing information leaflets and booklets about the new genetic testing that was coming on board for things like pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, the information booklet on pregnancy and Cavernoma, when you said, look, why don't we do this? And I said, oh, well, let's just do one for the internet, a leaflet. And you said, no, let's make a booklet out of it. And I think that was the right decision. And working with Rustam, Professor Al-Shali Salman, and doing this. So that was really important for me. To, and I mean, this is only on hindsight. I didn't say, well, I think I'll reinvent myself as a researcher for the Cavernoma Alliance. But that was very helpful. And I mean, and then in parallel with that, my friends and former colleagues, I'll say, but my friends from my work life, a couple of them in particular, kept me in the loop. So I did some work, I would say, let's call it work, still with them in that area, which I'm not too active like that anymore, but they kept me active after I guess about a year and a half after my surgery, I was feeling much more buoyant. But everything that we were hearing today about recovering one's energies and well, actually, some things we didn't hear today. Let me recoup that. I would say time. What we didn't hear today, I think, is important about time. How much time it takes to become the new normal, I think would be an interesting thing to explore with people. And one of the most helpful things that Emily said to me, my buddy, that gave me a lot of support when I was going through my recovery from brain bleed and surgery, is we all take our own time recovering from these things and reinventing ourselves. And it takes as long as it takes. So for me, the new normal was something that took some time.